I will put Detroit first, I will put Michigan first, and I will put America first, and that's the way it is.
So Michigan, today I ask you, are you ready to make your voices heard?
The political stakes may be at an all-time high. America's future and history are on the line. And Michigan, with its significant Midwest diversity, has become one of the 2024 election year epicenters. But why? To fully appreciate the strong emotions of this election, one must first understand how the Great Lakes state became a swing state. So before we get to the passions and policies of African Americans, we set the stage today with two political science scholars, Professor Donald A. Zinman of West Michigan's Grand Valley State University and Professor Marjorie Sarbaugh Thompson of Detroit's Wayne State University and its Levin Center for Oversight and Democracy. I'm Chuck Stokes. Come with us as we go inside Michigan's African American vote.
Simple question. We always hear that Michigan is a purple state, a swing state. The candidates are living in our backyard every single day. Why?
Well, I think there are several reasons. And one of them is that we have historically had a lot of voters who are independents, who identify as independents, not hardcore members of either political party.
Okay.
And they do a lot of ticket splitting. And Michigan ballots make it easy to split your ticket. You can do the straight party and then override it just by coloring in some other bubbles as you're going down. And we also do some things that are nonpartisan, like the judges and justices, so people have to actually do a little homework and look things up. So we're used to kind of exploring our ballots and thinking independently. I usually tell my students that it's roughly thirds, like a third Republican, a third Independent, and a third Democrat.
Which would explain why, if you lived here for any certain period of time, you've seen a Democratic governor, a Republican governor, a Democratic governor, a Republican governor, and it seems to go back and forth in cycles, and no one party seems to be in there terribly long, especially now with term limitation.
Yes, that is entirely true, although the new district maps mean that probably we'll see a little bit more swinging back and forth, because for a little while the Republicans kind of had a lock on the state house and the state senate.
And now Democrats like to boast that they have the lock.
Right. Possibly, but I would say it's going to go back and forth.
Let's talk about term limitation first, because you've spent a good portion of your career talking with the people in Lansing and dealing with the public policy on term limitation. Has it worked to the benefit of this state as you look back on it?
I would say no. And along with my colleagues in the Department of Political Science at Wayne State, we wrote 2 books about it, and were not very positive. And in particular, the ability of legislators to build relationships across the aisle, which is something that Michigan voters, with the number of independents, tend to like, that has gone away. And people are much more polarized, much more extreme.
So it's actually contributed to partisanship, probably?
I think it has. There were people who had built relationships and ties, both with their constituents and with other people in Lansing, that allowed them to do things in a bipartisan way. Now you would get punished in the political primary system, whereas previously Michigan had a lot of centrists in both parties, particularly in the Republican Party, if you think back to Bill Milliken as a sort of model moderate Republican.
Right. He would not fit well into the MAGA party at this point,
no,
which is technically the Republican Party, but we know that it is much different than Bill Milliken's Republican Party.
Absolutely.
All right. Something was written not terribly long ago, I think it was on information from the League of Women Voters, and it said the next election is up to women. And why is an organization like that saying that?
Well, because their data show that women vote at higher rates than men do in no matter how you divide it up. You can divide it up by age, you can divide it up by college degree, you can divide it up, by all sorts of things, but nationally and in the state of Michigan, women are more likely to vote than men are.
We've also seen in the statistics that you showed me that among women, African American women and Hispanic women are the biggest voting blocs once you get past white women, correct?
Yes.
And that seems to be growing?
I don't know for sure if it's growing, but they are, they're very clear in their partisan preferences.
Okay.
And white women tend to split a little bit more, but African American and Hispanic women tend to be more inclined to vote for Democratic candidates. And they have a bigger affinity for one party as opposed to white women who kind of go back and forth.
Coming up on our Spotlight Special, how race, gender, and economic well-being are changing Michigan and its political parties. One thing that we should probably point out is the number of female governors that in 2022, it hit a record number, and there were 12 female governors. Michigan, of course, is one of them with Gretchen Whitmer, our second female governor. Talk about how that is feeding into this significant voting bloc that you're talking about as well.
I'm not sure that it is entirely feeding into it, but I think it reflects the fact that women have turned out and that more and more women are winning primary elections, that they're seen as viable candidates, that they attract funding, and they've attracted a lot of support. We have a female governor, a female secretary of state, and a female attorney general.
Right. So it's making strides in that way. All right. Our political parties, in terms of economics, have things been changing?
Yes, that's a really interesting phenomenon in Michigan. Oakland County used to be the home of a lot of Republican candidates, fairly moderate Republican candidates, not necessarily the MAGA-style Republicans, but more the Bill Milliken-style Republicans. And more recently, if you look statewide, the affinity and the relationship between your economic well-being and your party ID has shifted. And it changed between 2016 and this current, more recent election cycle, 2022, 2023. If you look at the State of the State survey that MSU conducts, they ask for party identification, and they also ask questions later in the survey about people's economic well-being. It used to be that Republicans were strongly represented among the respondents who said that their economic well-being was excellent.
The wealthier party.
The wealthier party. And then for the Democratic Party, the people whose economic well-being wasn't so great were heavily represented by the respondents who
More
were Democrats.
blue-collar, working class.
Yeah, and so now it's shifted so that the very well-off are Democrats and the people who are struggling are Democrats, and then the Republicans have the sort of turf in the middle. And so if you juxtapose the two charts with each other, it's a really dramatic shift in terms of who identifies as a Democrat and a Republican.
How do you see Southeast Michigan changing over the last 20 years in terms of political voting blocs?
Macomb County is a sort of a mixed bag because people have moved from the city out to Macomb County. So some of those inner ring suburbs have a lot of people who used to live in the city. But there's a northern part of Macomb County which is developed and has the very large houses, some people call them McMansions with the huge lawns and so on. And some of those folks still have an attraction to the Republican Party. And so there's a big split in between there. There also are just a lot of shifts in terms of how religious people are. Michigan is somewhat more religious than the rest of the country, but Southeast Michigan, with younger people flocking into the city and migrating into the city, is a little closer to the country as a whole.
One thing that's being watched closely is whether or not November 5th, America elects its first female president. They currently have their first female vice president, who also happens to be African American and Asian American.
I think there's one big, very obvious difference between Barack Obama and Kamala Harris, and that is gender. And we still, even among women in the country, have a sense that you need the sort of strong leader kind of physicality. Mm-hmm. And so gender in voting is a bit more of a challenge for female candidates at the top of the ticket.
Than male candidates.
Than male candidates.
So this will be a test as to whether or not Americans, male or female, are ready to see a female as the number one leader in this nation. And even females may not be ready to make that shift, is what I think you're saying.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And so the gender bias is real when you're talking about the commander-in-chief.
Next on Inside Michigan's African American Vote, how diversity is beginning to shift traditionally red West Michigan towards a more purple political landscape. We'll be right back. All right, let me ask you a simple question. The presidential candidates are practically living in our state. Every day they're either in Grand Rapids or they're in Detroit or they're somewhere in between. Why are we such an important, quote unquote, swing state, purple state?
Michigan is a pretty diverse state, and at least in an overall sense, there are certainly a lot of homogenous communities in Michigan, but combined as a state, it's very diverse and moving in a lot of different directions all over the state, no matter where you go.
You've written a scholarly book on presidential heirs, and what do you think is going on with Americans, the American electorate, because we seem to love to go back and forth between Democrats and Republicans? First
of all, it's very hard for a political party that has held the presidency for 2 terms in a row. George Bush, Sr., in 1988 was able to overcome those headwinds and had a lot of advantages working in his favor, so he prevailed. But most of the time, it doesn't work out. Harris is in a very unique situation. She is an incumbent vice president running for president. Usually incumbent vice presidents, when they run for president, are coming off of their party controlling the White House for 2 terms, as opposed to 1. Al Gore or George Bush Sr. or Hubert Humphrey or Richard Nixon in 1960. They had to defend the baggage of the existing administration for 2 terms. So Harris only has to defend the baggage of a 1-term president who's leaving voluntarily. The other unique situation is that she's running against somebody who was already the president. And Trump had the unique advantage of, in 2016, positioning himself as the outsider. I'm going to come in, shake things up. I have no experience in government. I'm proud of that, and we need a businessman to shake things up. And in 2016, he could really do that. He could do that, and it was effective. Now he's the former president. He's got a record too. So, yes, Harris has to defend Biden's record, but Trump has to defend his own record too.
You teach at Grand Valley State University. You're over on the west side of the state. When you look back at history in this state, the only president that we've ever produced was Gerald Ford from Grand Rapids. But that was quite some time ago. As you look at West Michigan now, how different is it than when Gerald Ford was in leadership position there? And do you see some key changing demographics that may play a major role in the outcome of the 2024 election and the role that Michigan plays?
Kent County, for example, which is home to Grand Rapids and several surrounding suburbs, Kent County isn't the heavily Republican county that it used to be. This county has in the last 20 or 30 years received a lot of people coming in who are not native Michiganders, who are not part of sort of that Dutch American tradition of West Michigan, and even a lot of people who are immigrants from outside of the United States, Latinos, Arab Americans, and immigrants from Africa. Ottawa County has attracted national news because of the far right, Christian nationalists that sort of took over the local government, Ottawa Impact. That this is a Republican county. The Republican primary voters bounced out the county commissioners and replaced them with far right Republicans affiliated with this group, Ottawa Impact. But the Ottawa Impact folks have since lost their majority on the county commission in this year's primaries. East Grand Rapids, a prosperous suburb right outside of the city. East Grand Rapids used to be a very Republican community, and it clearly is not anymore. During the Obama years, it started to shift leftward, and in the Trump years, it shifted way leftward.
What does furniture, healthcare, and Presidents James Madison and Martin Van Buren have to do with Michigan's upcoming general election? Find out right after this.
In this part of the state, I'm not going to say that the issues affecting the auto industry are irrelevant. That's not true, but compared to the eastern side of the state, issues pertinent to the auto industry are not as prevalent as what you're going to have on the eastern side of the state. A lot of people in the western side of the state are employed in other industries, in the furniture industry. It's not the only industry, but it's an important industry in western Michigan. It's a big reason why the Dutch came here in the first place, and that's of course related to the housing industry. When people are buying houses, then they buy lots of furniture and healthcare. Healthcare is an important industry in Western Michigan. A lot of people are employed in healthcare.
Are you surprised that immigration / border and race appear to be playing a major role in at least the television ads that we see and the radio commercials?
No, I'm not surprised by it because they're easily those are issues that are easily exploited for emotional effect. But let's not kid ourselves that immigration, crime, race are easy issues for exploitation in a political campaign.
You've written a scholarly book about war precedents. We are not currently in a war in terms of our soldiers, but we are certainly in sort of a financial war because we are contributing a lot of money to the conflict in the Mideast as well as to Ukraine.
The book I wrote that's going to be coming out next month, it was on the 1812 election, the first time we had a wartime election in the War of 1812, and President James Madison, who was ultimately reelected, even though he had a lot of vulnerabilities that his opponents could just never really exploit. Foreign aid is very easy to demagogue. Foreign aid only makes up a very, very small percentage of the U.S. budget, but it's very easy for demagogue politicians who want to exploit, foreign aid as that's wasteful, government spending. We ought to be spending that money here at home. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, usually the same people who say, oh, we shouldn't be spending money on Ukraine or Israel or the same people. Oh, we should be spending money here at home. Okay, great. Let's spend money here at home on healthcare and schools and roads. Oh no, we can't do that. That's going to cost too much, or that's socialism. We can't do that.
Do you see much difference between what was going on in America in 2009 and what is happening now?
We were facing a very severe economic crisis at that time, which is not the case right now. The turnout was higher in 2020, obviously, when we elected a white male president. That was the highest turnout we'd had in 112 years. Yeah, 112 years. That was the highest turnout. Possible turnout goes up, even more than 2020, but if not, I think it'll get pretty close. The interesting thing about it, Harris is not really making a huge thing out of her being the first woman president. Obviously, it's there. You can't exactly, avoid it. But she's not making a huge thing about her being the first woman president. If it's just pretty self-evident that that's what it would be. So it doesn't require her to remind us every moment that she's a woman and she would be the first woman president. She just isn't talking about it very much. I do see her talking a lot about, well, it's time for a new generation of leadership.
She keeps emphasizing the future versus the past.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Let's get back to the question you asked me a little while back, which is she is the incumbent vice president and running for president. Usually, the incumbent vice president running for president isn't able to make that sort of case for change. Al Gore, or for that matter, even George H.W. Bush or Hubert Humphrey, they couldn't make the argument for, well, it's time to change, to turn the page, new generation of leadership. They couldn't do that. Harris can do that because she's running against a 78-year-old man, and he has been president before. Trump has been president before. Usually an incumbent vice president running for president promotes a message of continuity and stay the course, and let's continue on that same track, and going all the way back to Martin Van Buren.
Next week on our Spotlight Special, African American leaders discuss why their voters may make the difference in Michigan's 2024 crucial election. I'm Chuck Stokes. Thank you for watching.